This episode is brought to you by HelloSign, a Dropbox company. Sign documents 80% faster with HelloSign, the quickest way to get e-signatures for every type of document, so you can celebrate all those successful moments sooner. If you hate waiting for signatures, HelloSign is music to your ears. Try it for free today at HelloSign.com.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, an ugly ending to a trip in Buffalo as Washington loses 43-21. Every bit as bad as the score indicates. You know that, you saw it. The voice of the Washington football team, Bram Weinstein, and I will rehash this game. We're looking at this, of course, from a big picture perspective because there's a lot of meaning to take from this one, starting with what the hell is wrong with the defense. If that doesn't get fixed, this season will be shot. Can it get fixed? We discuss. We also talk a lot about Taylor Heinicke. What did this game mean for him? You can follow Bram on Twitter at RealBramW, and you can read my work on ESPN.com. But you knew all that. So let's get right to it. There's a lot to unwrap here. So here's my conversation with Bram Weinstein. Well, Bram, a big fear that you had, and especially you had going in, was something like this could happen. Was it even worse than maybe you anticipated?
That's a tough one to answer. Yeah, I didn't like the way the two teams were trending when they were playing each other. I really felt like, and I think I talked to you about this, like Josh Allen was, I mean, it's just so easy to say he's inaccurate right now, but he wasn't making poor decisions. He was just missing.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, well, whenever he becomes Josh Allen again, everybody's going to be in trouble. And it's not like last year at the beginning of the season when Carson Wentz was throwing the ball 10 yards over someone's head or making bad decisions and receivers are running in and he's throwing outs. Like, that's not what was happening with him. He was just missing, like missing throws he wouldn't normally miss. And I think like I kind of had this feeling like, well, he's just going to be himself at some point. And there it was today. And I really think like, and then the third down defense is gotten to the point of disturbing now. Right. I mean, they're statistically the worst in the NFL. At one point, I don't remember what the final number was, but Buffalo was like 8 for 12 at one point on third downs. And it's third and longs, 3rd and 15 on the first drive, 3rd and 8 on another drive. They just can't seem to get off the field in statistically difficult situations for an offense to move the ball. And that's pretty disturbing. And that added up to, while I like what Taylor Heinicke brings and I like the dynamic of the offense, they can't play a team like this from behind. I think we knew that going in. They got way behind. They got a lucky break on that crazy kickoff. Right. But, defensively, they were not nearly as good enough to be really, really competitive and give themselves a chance to win. So I guess the score is a little, I'm so used to them being in every game that the score is a little surprising, but I'm not surprised by the outcome. No,
I'm not either. It's funny because at the beginning of the week, I was expecting didn't think it was going to be I thought it would be a double-digit win for Buffalo. And I kind of allowed myself to be talked into, well, Allen's been missing throws, which he has. But I also thought with the way this defense plays that he was going to get a lot of chances to hit some of those throws and that he would. He just hit a couple more than I thought he would. And so I wasn't shocked by him having a good game, but the defense is so disturbing right now. And I don't have any answers for it. I'm shocked by how poorly they've played. And what can you even say about them at this point? This is unbelievable how bad they've played.
I'm surprised by the defense. I really am. I had a much higher expectation for them. I keep trying to remind myself and remind others that at this point last year, similar things were kind of happening. Maybe not to this degree, like with Allen, but go look at Kyler Murray's stats. Go look, go look back at the scores of the Rams game, the Ravens game, the Browns game. Early when they were 1-5 and they were playing really good high level teams like they played today. Like I look at that team and go, that team could very easily be in the Super Bowl. And when they played these really high level teams, the results weren't that great. and they were out of it in the middle of the fourth quarter, and then something clicked for them in the middle of the season. So I'd like to think that the talent's going to take over at some point, and that they're going to it'll turn around for them. But right now, and I don't think it's like any one particular group, I just think collectively they're not on the same page. Like they're just really not. Like the secondary at times looks like it's too soft. The front four, I think we're asking it to like make all the plays. I think that's unfair. And then I think the biggest like surprise stat that I saw going in, because everyone just thinks like, well, the front four is not getting any pressure. Did you know going into this game that they blitzed more than anybody else in the NFL? But
I did.
Like, when they blitz and when they don't blitz, they have the exact same success rate in pressuring the quarterback. So that's a problem. Like that's a problem. Even when they do bring people to help the front four, they're not getting there. And in the case of today, they took on a guy who almost won the MVP a year ago, and boy, did he look like it today.
He did. And, you know, the difference between this year and last year, my concern would be last year they're playing a different level of quarterbacks that they're going to face in the next month and a half. And that's where, like, the danger here is they could be in a lot of games like this if they don't get things fixed, because the level of quarterback play is just at a higher level. And that was always my fear going in, that this defense would take a step back in terms of stats, but then I thought they'd be good enough to win some of these games because they could keep them around. So that, you know,
I didn't think they'd be the second ranked defense again, only because of who they're playing.
Right.
You know, but like that didn't mean they weren't going to be a really, really effective group.
Right.
And the opposite has happened here so far. Yeah. And I think it's a massive disappointment. Like the defense can't get off the field in critical junctures. They're behind in every game. A team goes out on every game. They're down 7-0 after the first drive. Like they're down every single game. They're down 7-0 after the first drive. So listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know what the answer is. I just know that, you know, their expectations should be higher. This does go back to, and I think like Rivera has been foreshadowing this a little bit. Like he was saying over and over and over towards the end of camp, I want to see their maturity. He was using kind of vague words. Like he never really totally explained what he meant, but it gave me the wrong vibe about where they were. Then he's calling this game, and I agree with him. This is a measuring stick. You're going to find out how good you are, because that's a team that might be in the Super Bowl. And they were not competitive with them, in my opinion. You know, like if they had a screen pad, listen, like the Gibson play was amazing. Great play he made. They got lucky that Buffalo, you know, had a brain fart on this, you know, kickoff, and good for them. Like they recovered it and they made a play. It was awesome. They scored on it. Heineke showed his guts again. And then, except for that 5-minute period, they were completely dominated.
Outclassed.
It wasn't close. It wasn't even close. And so I'm sure that, you know, Rivera and company are pretty disappointed in that. I mean, even as they were kind of foreshadowing, I think that they were concerned that the results weren't going to go the way they wanted.
And that maturity level, which is, we've talked about that before, but that comes through in what they keep talking about is not doing your job, getting out of your gap, not playing disciplined football. And that's been my problem with the defense. Like I can't predict them to beat a good team until you see the defense actually play a lot smarter, a lot more disciplined. And my concern is they are very young. Chase Young is young. You know, a lot of those guys are young. How long is it going to take for them to get out of that kind of mindset? That's going to be a problem. And how much of that, if they keep giving up these first drive touchdowns, how much of that is on the coaching? You know, that's the stuff that I think you have to take a look at everything now, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think obviously like some changes need to be made. I was like happy to see Cam Curl make a couple of plays. I feel like his is a name that I'm surprised I'm not calling more often. And I would, you know, say back to the coaches at that point, to your point, like, why aren't you finding a way to get him in a position to make more plays? Because outside of the front four, he was their best playmaker in the secondary a year ago. So I think there's some room there, obviously. You know, I think we knew going in that the linebackers were a weak point as a position group. I actually thought Jamin Davis has had some good moments again the last couple of weeks. So maybe that's kind of coming around, and hopefully that'll be the case. But I'm with you. I just think collectively, right, I don't want to blame, like, so easy to blame Chase Young or Montez Sweat when they don't make, you know, a sack every play, like unrealistic expectations. I think collectively they're off here, and I'm with you. Like, and I felt this way from the get-go. They're going to go as far as their defense takes them. If this is what their defense is going to be, they're going to have a very long season.
Long season.
Yeah.
And you know, and like, I don't expect Young or Montez to get sacks every play, but I do expect Chase Young to make a play once in a while. And that's something he hasn't really done. And I think they need that from him. And when you watch him as a rusher, like to me, he's inconsistent with whether it's techniques, it's how he's rushing, whatever. That has to get is that part of the learning process for him? Well, probably, because you can't come in and just do things the same way. And so the great players continue to evolve. So the challenge for him is to keep evolving. And I think that's something he has to do. But the other thing, Bram, too, and when I talk about coaching, last year, that defensive line was frustrated with what they were being taught. And I just wonder how much of that is there a carryover from that? Or is that just a convenient excuse because they're not producing?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've heard I heard the same things too. I do find that it's not like overly unusual, to hear players complain about coaching and certain aspects of it. So I don't like to think that. I don't want to make too much into it. Yeah,
right. And you don't know, like they were being taught new things
right.
last year, and they were bucking it a little bit, but then they played well at the end of the year. So you can't fall back when it's not going well. That it's what we're being taught. And I'm not saying I'm not even saying they are, but that's
right. Look, it's early. Look, Kansas City's 1-2. Does anyone think their season's over? Because I don't. Baltimore needed a 66-yard field goal to win against what everyone thinks is a really bad team, because they couldn't score any points today. Does everyone think their offense is terrible? No. So, it's a long season. We learned this, with this team last year. I keep reminding people, they were 1-5. They had gotten blown out a number of times early when they played really good high-level teams and something clicked for them. The problem here for this year is they're not going to get what looks to be average or beat up teams in the middle of the season. They're about to run into Mahomes, Brady, Rodgers, Denver's defense on the road, which looks better now.
Saints are playing well.
Saints are playing well, or up and down, but they're playing well. And so they are running into what seems to be a different machine. And that's the real problem. And that was the whole thing, going into it. I'm like, the defense won't have the same numbers. You should get used to not seeing the same numbers because of who they're playing. And that's the fear here, that this could go sideways on them. That's the fear here.
Yeah.
But I have to believe, because this has been Ron Rivera's history. That his teams get better as they go along. And I'm hoping to hear a different tenor in his voice this week, because I'm sure he's going to be disappointed because he hasn't had one of these since he's been here. Even as he said, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. He hasn't had one of these. This was a blowout today.
This episode is brought to you by Shell. College football is best enjoyed at home. The home that has no rooms because it's a stadium of 70,000 screaming fans. But wherever you are, ESPN and Shell can take your fandom further with savings up to 15 cents per gallon for fuel rewards members at Shell. Welcome home, football fans. Terms and conditions apply. See fuelrewards.com/fuelyourfandom for details. Shell is an official sponsor of ESPN College Football. ESPN, the ESPN logo, and ESPN College Football are registered trademarks of ESPN Incorporated.
This episode is brought to you by Philips One by Sonicare. One up your brushing with Philips One. This one is the ideal one for those who are still using an old-school manual toothbrush. To all those people, it's time to take your brushing one level up. The solution is a simple one. It's the perfect timing one. It's the long-lasting battery-powered or USB rechargeable one. That comes in multiple colors to match you one. The one with a subscription that delivers new brush heads for just $5. Your teeth deserve this one. Philips One by Sonicare. One up your brushing. Learn more at philips.com/one. That's philips.com/ONE.
Prosper Insurance has an offer that's tough to beat and will benefit you one way or another. When you get a quote with Prosper Insurance, if they can't beat your home or auto quote, they will send you an official Washington football team legend jersey. Of course, if they do beat it, you'll be able to afford your own jersey or two. I can tell you from experience, the quote I received was $2,000 less than my previous insurer. It might not be like that for everyone, but why not find out? Finding the right insurance can be a pain, but Prosper makes it easy while providing great service and advice. Their licensed advisors shop the market with top companies like Allstate, Nationwide, Progressive, Travelers, and more to find you the perfect coverage at a great rate, which helps explain why Prosper has more than 1,000 five-star reviews on Google. You have nothing to lose. Simply visit prosper.insurance/Keim to get your quote and a possible Washington football team legend jersey. That's prosper.insurance/Keim, Keim. This offer is good from September 13th to September 30th. You know what else is cool? They plant a tree for every policy they write. That's more than 66,000 trees and counting. Get ready to feel good about your insurance.
You know, his point too is you're going to see what this team is made of, how they respond this week. And I agree with him. Like, if you come back and you have a good game against Atlanta and you beat Atlanta, well, then whatever happened today, you're still 2-2. You're 2-2. So
2-2 if they win this weekend, and then everything's on the table. And look, the Giants lost today. Either Philly or Dallas going to lose tomorrow night. I mean, it's all still there in front of them because fortunately they don't have a Tampa Bay or a Kansas City or something like that in their division. So it's still there and in front of them, and there's still a long way to go. And last year they came a long way in a very circuitous route to it. But we'll see this time around. We'll see. And I mean, offensively, like, look, like Heineke's a gamer. I'll tell you the one thing that really, kind of got me towards the end of the game was he put his body unnecessarily on the line in a game that was over. And like, I totally get, like, I see now why they've tried to get him in the pocket, do the professional quarterback stuff, like keep out of harm's way, because I appreciate like how competitive he is, how bad he wants to win. It's why he's infectious. It's why his teammates really like him. But he took two massive shots, at the end of the game, in a game that was over. It's one of those things where I appreciate his moxie and his gamesmanship, but like that bothered me too. And it was another part of the learning curve for all of them, I think.
it is. And I think with Heineke too, and they all talked about it afterwards too. And even during the game, I would mention that, clearly we saw his flaws today. And to me, the biggest flaw we saw was that he has a tendency to force and try and do too much, which he admitted. You can't make up 3 touchdowns with one throw over the middle. And that's what he was trying to do, make a play, but maybe something wasn't there. And the only problem is with that is how do you get that guy out of it? Because he knows that. And he's talked about taking better care of the ball. And today he did not. And he made some plays, but he's also not the kind of quarterback that can fall behind like this. I think he needs to have a team. You have to have a balanced offense, and not just 50-50 run pass, but have the ability to run or throw on any play. And when you get in a game like this, they're just going to come after him. And that's a really, really good defense and a really good secondary. And it just, you saw flaws. But what do you think this game means for him?
I mean, I hope not a lot, because they're going to be relying on him, and so I hope it's just kind of a learning experience that they played on the road against a really good team, against a defense that has not given up many points and are blowing people out. And with all the flaws we saw in Buffalo, this is how good they are. I mean, they're outscoring people, 78-21, and everyone's like, well, they're not playing perfect, and that's what they're doing. So that's a high level functioning team that they played today.
Yes.
And I would hope that it's just, like, if anyone thought Taylor Heinicke is going to go undefeated, you're crazy. So I think there's going to be, let's, readjust again. That said, like, I'm with you here. Like, I know going in, because I talked to, we had our production meetings beforehand, it was pretty clear that Washington wanted to run the ball significantly today, whether it's McKissick, Gibson, whoever, that they wanted to run the ball a little bit today. I think partially to take some of the pressure off and probably try to shorten the game a little bit.
Yeah, I think that moving forward.
And they couldn't do it because they're down 21-0 in the blink of an eye. And then all bets are off, right? Then all bets are off. And the only way to win is to let him YOLO it a little bit. And so I just hope that they can put this behind them. They play a much different opponent next week. They're going to have every opportunity to defeat that opponent without having really spent a lot of time looking at them. I'm going to go with they're not a Super Bowl favorite, like the team that they played today. And so, I think that, there's an opportunity. And again, 2-2 is fine. They get out of this at 2-2, it's fine. And hopefully that's what will happen. And then everybody will feel good about themselves again. But, next week is turning into a big one.
It is.
1-3 is not going to feel very good with what's coming up on the schedule after.
No, and I think my concern is, and you're right, it's like it's 1-2 and other teams are, it's just how they've looked on defense is what is the absolutely most troubling. And that to me is like where, if the defense was playing well and they're 1-2, I'm like, okay, they'll be okay. But that's not the case. And that's why
this is where I was on Buffalo. Like, I was watching them and everyone's saying, well, Allen's off and Allen's this. And I'm like, actually, their offense isn't actually playing that poorly. He's just missing some throws he wouldn't normally miss. Wait till he starts hitting them. And then they're going to look like they did. And that's the difference here. Washington's defense looks as bad as those stats are. It's not like, oh, some guy made some lucky catch, or like, oh, this guy somehow got out of that sack. No, none of that is happening. They're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. They're not making enough plays. Everybody's wide open. These third and longs, it's not like people are making these athletic, crazy plays to convert them. They're not. So, I mean, they're not playing well. Like, that's the difference between them and Buffalo. The more I watched Buffalo this week, this is why I feared this was going to happen. I'm watching this going, it isn't because like they're not playing well. It's just they're having miscues,
Yeah.
like,
it's funny.
And they'll fix them. And when they do, watch out.
Well, it's funny because when I watched Buffalo, Allen just didn't look like he had any rhythm. And in the first drive today, I'm like, oh, he looks, not off, because you're talking about the first two throws. I'm like, but he doesn't look, I think even confident is the wrong word, but he didn't look himself yet. And that 3rd and 15 throw, like after that is like, once he made, because the first two throws were a little bit off. Once he made that 3rd and 15, like, and you could just see there was it settled them, it seemed. And because if they come out, I think
it hurt Washington too.
It did.
How many third and longs do they have to give up?
Many.
It's too many. And I can't speak for them, but I can't imagine that was a big confidence builder. 3rd and 15 first drive, and they complete it. I mean, the wind was out of the sails before it ever started for the defense. It really was.
And it's the disappointing part is you do have like you have a defensive coordinator who has a track record where his defenses have been good. So like before here, you'd have defensive coordinators who had track records of bad defenses, whether it was Joe Barry or Greg Minuski or Hazlitt was up and down with his. But this guy's usually had good defenses, and it's like they can't get it right. And I just, to be honest, I feel bad for this fan base having to listen to all offseason people talking about how this is one of the best defenses in the NFL, and now they're one of the worst. And that's where it's just it's highly disappointing. And
long year though. It is.
It is a long year. It is long year.
Long year. Nothing is over. I look at the players that they have, and I keep thinking of it like an NBA team. Like they're just too talented not for it to come around at some point. And that's why I think it will. I think it will come around.
And Bram, I agree with that. And I go back because we go back to that Marty year where they were 0-5 and looked as bad as any team I've covered. And then they win 8 out of 11. I'm not saying this team will win 8 out of 11 at some point, but you knew at that time it was like this coach is too proven in Schottenheimer. And actually this team is more talented than that one, but that team played together, and that's the difference. And I don't even know that it's a chemistry thing. I think there's some youth, and I think I would say even internally they knew like get through that first half of the year. Now get through this first half of the year without too much damage, so you can get so they know that they can improve in the second half. And
just got to somehow get to December with the division potentially in sight, and then it's in front of them because the whole end of the season's division games.
But if they don't play better defense, Dallas will just flip them. Yeah.
That's right. And like a lot of people, when they talked about the scheduling, they're like, most of these teams do play the same teams, and that's somewhat true. And the first place schedule, is disadvantageous for them when they're going to Green Bay and places like that. But today was the extra game, the 17th game. Their 17th game was at Buffalo. Right. That's a severe disadvantage against some of their divisional opponents. They're not playing teams like that. They're not getting saddled with something like that. This was one of those that, like, I don't think I'd feel so bad about it if the game was close and it was, but I think they just were so outclassed today that's what I think is so disappointing about it. You told anybody like, oh, they're going to go up to Buffalo. Like beginning of the season, you said, well, they're going to lose up in Buffalo. Of course, everybody would be like, I know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
I think you just wanted
it's just the way it went down, where they didn't look competitive against them for the majority of the game. That was really what was problematic.
Yeah, and that was my thing. Play well, because if you start playing well, you string together good games. That's what they are doing the converse defensively. They're stringing together bad games, and I think, like I said, Heineke is a great story. We long term, he's not going to be the guy long term. They're going to look for a guy in the young season, but what can he do now? But he can't bail out a team that has a defense that can't stop anybody on third down. He's not that.
Right.
He's not
Josh Allen. Right.
No, he's not. He's not.
Right,
yeah, we've seen him compared to, we've seen Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Those are how you draw these guys up. Taylor Heineke is not. But again, this loss is far from being on him. He's not.
It's not on him.
You know, it's not even close to being on him.
I don't think anybody should be pegging it on him. I'm
no,
not
they
pegging it on
shouldn't.
him. I actually,
Absolutely.
I think he, it's not his fault they were down 21-0.
Nope,
I mean, it really
it's
isn't. It
Nope,
really
it's
isn't.
not. And he forced a couple balls. We saw that. I think if you put it like we saw what he could do last week, and so we'll see what he can do moving forward. So, but it is on the D, and that's what's troubling. And I think the last thing, Bram, on that too is that there are a lot of guys that are young on that defense, but are the veterans playing the way they need to? Now, I will say Deron Payne, I thought, played pretty well early on, from when I was able to see, or when I was able to really focus on it. But where are the guys like Landon Collins and the linebackers and all that? That's where, and William Jackson, Kendall Fuller, those guys are giving up plays too, and that's where, But it's a collective thing. It's all bad right now. So, any last thoughts, Bram?
No, I mean, I just think I just kind of lean on. We've been doing this a long time. I've seen teams turn things around, including this one a year ago, with honestly, as a quarterback situation that felt more unsettled than this particular one. Right. So, I really firmly believe there's just no chance that this coaching staff and those players on defense are going to get overwhelmed week after week after week. Something's going to come around. Like, I'm waiting for the players only meeting that is about to happen, this week or next week. Like, it feels like one of those is coming. You know what I mean?
Yep. Long season. Yeah. And that's why deep breath, long season, see what happens next week. Bram, thanks a lot.
This episode is brought to you by HP. Whenever you do your best thinking, the HP Spectre X360 is ready when inspiration strikes. With power save for battery life and focus mode to multitask, you can do your best thinking whenever and wherever it happens. You can't always schedule when and where you might have a brilliant thought, whether it's in the morning or before bed, when you're at your computer or away from it. Thinking can happen anywhere and anytime. The HP Spectre X360 2-in-1 convertible PC with Windows 10 saves battery life for whenever an idea hits you. HP Spectre X360, a more thoughtful laptop.
A wild week 2 of football is in the books, and now it's time to review the tape and get ready for week 3 with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed week, DraftKings is giving new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and place a bet of $1 on any Week 3 game to receive $150 in free bets instantly. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Keim, that's K-E-I-M, to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. You must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Bram for joining me, and thank you for tuning in after such an ugly game. I'll be back with another episode Wednesday morning. Talk to you next time.